When I think about fashion and good fashion, it's always about innovation and what's the new idea. And I think with drag, it's such a good way to explore new techniques.
Welcome to Clothing Culture, a fashion industry podcast at the intersection of technology and innovation. I'm Emily Lane.
And I'm Bret Schnitker. We speak with experts and disruptors who are moving the industry forward and discuss solutions to real industry challenges.
Clothing Culture is produced by Stars Design Group, a global design and production house with more than 30 years of experience. Welcome back to another episode of Clothing Culture. Today, we are thrilled to welcome a true visionary in the world of fashion, Mondo Guerra. Known for his fearless use of color, bold patterns, and deeply personal storytelling through design, Mondo first captured the public's attention on Project Runway Season 8, one of my favorite seasons of all time. His talent and authenticity left a lasting impression. His courageous decision to share his HIV-positive status on the show resonated with audiences around the globe, making this a pivotal moment in television history and advocacy. Since then, Mondo continued to inspire, winning Project Runway All Stars, mentoring emerging designers on Under the Gun, and leaving his mark on pop culture with designs featured on RuPaul's Drag Race, worn by some of the most iconic drag performers in the world. We're thrilled he's in town today, a guest of the Alt Ball, which is a spectacular event that is going to happen, featuring designers, artists, drag queens, circus performers, all kinds of amazing talent. They will be showcasing avant-garde creations on the runway, raising funds for Doorways, which is a really incredible organization. This organization is dedicated to providing emergency housing and supportive services for individuals living with HIV in St. Louis, across Missouri, and Illinois. Every year, these programs serve over 3,000 people facing homelessness and poverty with supportive services to stabilize and rebuild their lives. So this is just a wonderful thing that is happening in our community that, of course, sets up this opportunity for us to have a fantastic conversation with you, Mondo. Welcome.
Thank you so much. I'm so happy to be here.
And second run of the Alt Ball, and it's fully booked. Every
Sold out.
ticket sold,
Yes.
so that is
Sold out.
really awesome.
I think they saved me a couple seats, but
Good. I think we're standing room only in the back. We'll
I
wave
know.
at you from the back. But
Well, it is a sold-out event, but we're going to be there as press capturing all kinds of content. So for those of you who are listening to this and are like, I want to see this spectacle, don't worry. We're going to make sure and share all kinds of things. While you're here, I want to start out a little bit easy. I want to just hear a little bit of your foundation story. When did you know that fashion design was going to be your thing and you could make a career out
God
of it?
help you getting into this business.
geez, am I in the business? I don't know. I think
We ask the same question all the time. Should we be?
Yeah, should we be? I mean,
Yeah.
I've always been a creative person ever since I was a young kid. I found art through hardship. My dad was in rehabilitation a lot through my childhood, and I'd visit him at the hospital, and he would share with me his gifts, and one of his gifts was watercolor. Mm-hmm. And so I started doing watercolor when I was 4 years old, and I did a painting of a bouquet that he had on his table side, and it ended up in my grandmother's house on the wall, and that made me feel very good, and it was just those kind of moments that really drove me to continue to find creative outlets, and I was always trying to find things that allowed me to escape, because art has always not only been my best friend, but it's always been escapism for me, especially when I was a younger kid, because it was the only thing that I felt I understood, and it felt like it understood me as well, if that,
Allowed you to tell your story too. Most
yes.
artists use that.
I mean, I didn't realize that when I was a kid. I think looking back, I know that, but I think for me, it was just escapism. Mm-hmm. And then I really wanted to be a dancer when I was like 6, 7 years old, but also being a Latino male, like my parents were like, boys don't dance, that whole story. And so that was kind of a heartbreak.
I don't know if you go to Miami, they'd argue with you.
I
A
know,
lot of people
I know. So like that was a little
loving dance there.
heartbreaking, but they did allow me to play the piano, but that was also a give and take. Like I was able to play piano if I also played baseball,
Oh,
and baseball was terrible. I was
yeah.
not good at baseball, but I did excel at piano, and I continued playing all through high school. I went to a arts program, Denver School of the Arts, and I was a piano major.
Oh
And
gosh.
my dream was always to become, write scores for film, be a composer. That was like really where my heart was, and I was planning to go to college for that. But during my high school was very competitive, and piano was like one of the hardest disciplines just because everybody was really, really good. And so we were really pushed hard, and I was like in everything at that point. I was in jazz band and marching band. I
Mhm.
was in youth pops orchestra, and then I was a piano major on top of that. So it was just like booked music all the time. And it was hard, it was competitive, and I will say that I kind of like got burnt out. On top of that, I was figuring out like who I was as an individual, like what my identity
Mhm.
could be, what it should be. I don't know, figuring it all out. And fashion for me at that point, as an 18-year-old, was a vehicle to explore something new.
Did the
Explore,
school offer anything in fashion? Because so few schools, especially high school, don't.
not at my
Okay.
school. They didn't even have a costume design program at that point,
Okay.
so that wasn't an opportunity. And so through that exploration, I started to attend raves. Remember
Oh, of
raves? I'm saying this because I
course.
saw something the other day, and they're like, there's this girl talking about like raves aren't raves anymore. Like we used to be able to put down our backpacks and our phones on the floor. I'm like, when I was going to raves, like our phones were attached to the wall,
Yes.
right?
Mhm.
Right.
Like we
Right.
didn't we
Yeah.
didn't have phones to like lay down on the
Yes.
floor
Mhm.
there. Anyway, so when I talk about raves, I'm very passionate about it because that's really where I found my identity and my introduction to fashion, because it was a safe place to really express myself through through a look,
Right.
through creating, different ideas, developing ideas through costume and fashion. And so I was doing that every weekend, and I got really, really involved with it, really involved in that scene. Um,
And you finally got to dance.
and I got to
Yeah.
dance. Yes, that's a good point. And I loved that. And I just started getting recognized as that guy that would always come out in these crazy looks, and it felt good, and I just kept at it. Then I met my mentor, Susan Murphy, who was a fashion designer in the 80s back in LA. And she just really helped me, you know, figure out. Well, she was very much that mentor that's about foundation. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
Oh,
Like
yeah.
you have to learn this
Yep.
before you start exploring and getting experimental and
Which is sort of
being fun.
lost today, even.
Listen. I am a fierce believer in foundation. Whatever
That's
that
good.
Mhm.
means to you, like figure out what your foundation is. Like when I see a young creative person, I know that that creativity comes from a deeper place, whether you have history and, or an interest in like, I don't know, medicine or whatever it is, like my foundation is music. And I feel like playing piano and composition, I feel like that's what I apply to fashion now.
Mhm.
And I always kind of think about like how I'm able to mix prints. It's kind of like the treble clef and the bass clef and how they pair up and they
Yeah.
make music. You know what I mean? So I think about that kind of balance when I'm doing the fashion stuff. But yeah, to make a longer story shorter, that's kind of how I got
No,
into fashion.
that's
Yeah.
really fascinating. I can see how you being an artist, how well that informs your creations today. Your work is art.
Thank you. I I'm so hard on myself. I always want to do more, and it's hard. I'm not always happy being known for one thing, but I'm happy to go back to that. But I'm also wanting to explore more. So
But
I
you're
don't
an
know. You know what I
artist.
mean?
Life
Yeah.
is a journey of
Yeah.
exploration, right? Every
Yes.
major artist, whether you paint with a brush or you paint with fabric, they're on this journey of exploration, and they never end. There's always an evolution.
Well, I'm looking for the next corner. I'm ready to turn that corner. I
Yeah.
don't know what it looks like or what it's going to be, but I'm ready for that. And I think I'm figuring that out. I don't think the
Yeah.
figuring out ever ends either, you know?
No, of
No.
course not. Are you an introvert or an extrovert?
I don't even know how to answer that. I feel like I'm moody,
Okay.
you know? So sometimes I can be an extrovert. Most of the time I am an introvert. Being on the show, when I showed up, I was very much an introvert because I was never like the cool kid in class, and I was never outgoing to to I don't know, to even be present
Yeah.
and have people understand me or get to know me. And I think when I was on the show was the first time that I was where I felt like in a new safe space with
In
other.
front of millions and millions
Well,
of
we
people.
I didn't think about that when we were on the show. I mean,
Okay.
there's lots of cameras around you, and yeah, you're on TV, but when you're there, it's just kind of like you're with this group of people that are pushing you and that you see doing amazing work, and you're inspired, and it's just it's chaotic and difficult and hard and emotional, but it's also very, oh my God, it's so giving. And on top of that, this was a group of people that really that I understood, and they understood me, and it felt like a very, very safe place. And I think that's why it was such a great experience for me.
So I'm just curious, being this kind of introvert at the heart, but what you exhibit as an artist is almost that of an extrovert. How did that experience in a very public way on Project Runway? How did that shape your perspective as a designer after that? And was it hard for you to go to being more in the public eye?
It's a little give and take because again, when I arrived to Project Runway, I wasn't allowing myself to be visible as an artist. I never considered myself as like an artist. And I think when I was on the show, there was a lot of validation, and not only from the judges, because let's be honest, the judges, I don't know
Yeah.
about that.
Yeah.
But I will say the validation from the other creative people that you're spending weeks and weeks with, that was really important to me, you know, and it's still very important to me. I love those people so much. I I feel like it impacted me in a way that I think it impacted me in a way that I'm able to be confident in my work enough to be able to share it. And let's face it, like once you're on that show, people want to see it a lot more. And sometimes, you know, I the the one thing that I didn't like about being on the show is that, you know, I was known for certain things. And so your fan base and the people that love you want that from you all the time. So that was very difficult to kind of break away. And I think I did break away for a while. And just because I felt like I wanted to get rid of,
The
you know,
persona.
I wanted to get rid of
Yeah.
that. But I'm back and I'm comfortable in what I, you know, created in that in that territory in that moment of my life.
Gosh, yeah. So, you've evolved. You're trying to constantly evolve your style, and you kind of got yourself known for a specific aesthetic. How do you balance self-expression with commercial viability?
Oh, I mean, good price points. I'll say that. Like
Anything sells at the
yes,
right price. That's
right.
right.
Good price points, honestly. And I think, I think as creative people, we always want to create the fantasy and create the art, but we also know that there's a consumer that's not
Mhm.
necessarily going to buy a runway piece,
Mm-hmm.
so it's really important for us to think as business people and understand that there are certain things that we can, you know, um, pull back a little bit and make it a little bit more, like easier to digest,
Yep.
and imagine that in your wardrobe.
That is a big shift. We talk to painting artists all
Mhm.
the time. M's got a real big community of them. And we talk to designers. And while the goal for both of them is the same,
Mhm.
hopefully, you know, painting artists make money while they're alive.
Mhm.
Most of them make a lot more money after they're dead, right? Those paintings become a lot more valuable. But specifically in designers today, the goal is commercial acceptance, at least to make a living. And you've touched on so many really interesting points. We've got a small community of designers and growing here in St. Louis. They all share the same challenges you do. They all come from a space. They're developing their own DNA. They're developing their own expression. So many of them have been lone wolves, and they battle with the security. They battle with all
Mhm.
those things. And I think one of the solutions is community. And
Mhm.
you've kind of pointed that out today, that the community on this show
Mhm.
kind of help build
Yeah, I
your,
mean, as a creative person, when you say security, it's like not only, financial security, but it's also emotional security. You
Mm-hmm.
self-confidence.
know what I mean?
Yeah.
And artistic security, there for me, I always separate individual from artists. You know what I mean? And that's very important for me to stay sane, because if I was just truly focusing as on myself as an artist all the time, I don't think I'd be able to get through it. I also have
Yeah.
to think about
Your community, the
my
people that,
community and myself as an individual. And that's something that I've learned, to answer your
Mm-hmm.
question, since being on the show.
yeah. Do
Go to
you think
therapy? No.
yeah.
Art is your therapy.
Do you think you're still developing your DNA? Do you think you're still developing this kind of trajectory that you're on, or?
I think I know I'm settled into what my DNA is,
Okay.
but I'm also learning and finding new ways to um, evolve and also to adapt.
Hmm.
You,
Mm-hmm.
We're,
there's and present it in new ideas that maybe the audience doesn't recognize it as polka dots or stripes or whatever it is,
Mm-hmm.
But in my mind, this is my new way of showing that.
Yeah.
yeah.
So speaking of adapting,
Mhm.
you started experiencing your self-expression through costume
Mhm.
at raves,
Mhm.
found yourself on Project Runway, which is very fashion focused, and now here you are known for dressing some of the most iconic drag queens.
Mhm.
Like, tell me a little bit about that trajectory of costume, high-end fashion designer.
Right. Well, I think for me, my work has always been on the verge of costume. I've always been told that, and I'm okay with that. And I think it translates to a stage very well, especially for performers. And I think it was just kind of a natural progression of what I would like to do. I mean, I started when really learned to sew, I was working in a costume shop, and it wasn't my designs, but
You
I was
learn the
around it all the
techniques,
time.
the skill set.
And now, I mean, come on, drag queens, they embrace, at least the ones I work with, they embrace color, they embrace print, and
Yeah.
it's just
Mm-hmm.
always new, like
They embrace subtlety.
not so much,
Yeah,
but I will
exactly.
say, like, and also with drag, it's like always like when I think about fashion and good fashion, it's always about innovation and what's the new idea. And I think with drag, it's such a good way to explore new techniques
Right. No holds
and
barred. They want something
so
unique
much
and new.
innovation and just figuring out. I mean, I get so many different requests or ideas from the queens that I'm like, okay, now how do I figure this out? Like lately, I've dipped into like, I don't know, molding and
Mm.
also like 3D printing and like all these things I never thought I would explore, but like I need to keep it like fresh, because let's face it, the drag community is coming up with like crazy innovation and
Oh, for
new
sure.
ideas all the time because they always want to be the best. You know what I mean? So it's. Let me tell you, it's really really hard. It's hard to keep up. It's very hard to keep up, and also because the fans of the queens now are very how do I say, very opinionated. And that's the other thing is like when we were on the show, there wasn't a lot of social media, so I missed that, and I'm kind of happy that I missed that.
The daily stream
Yeah,
of love,
exactly.
hate. Yeah.
But also like now that I'm designing for so many queens that have a huge platform, you know, like I'm reading those comments too, and a lot of it comes back to like what they're wearing or how they're presenting themselves. And you know, as a creative person that designed something for this artist, it trickles down. You know what I mean? And it's hurtful. It's painful.
Of
Yeah.
course. My gosh. You're so emotionally invested in what you're doing, and it represents who you are, represents your heart.
Yes.
So of course. Drag queens, they put on a show, they've got music. It's a big part of that whole experience. When you're designing for a queen, are you using your music interest to kind of inform
Yeah, I
design?
think, I definitely, I think that music is always a part of the process. When I'm designing something, I probably will find a piece of music and I'll have it on repeat in the studio like over and over and over and over, just because I don't know,
It's a mood.
It's a mood. It's
Yeah.
incubating the whole idea. Yeah, that's totally part of the process.
So what are you listening to right now?
Oh my gosh. You know what I'm listening to right now? You guys are going to gag. I am listening to Sunset Boulevard,
Oh my gosh.
the Nicole
yes.
Scherzinger recording
Okay.
from London. I think they've recorded it on October 14th, 2025. And it's a live recording. And so like you can hear the audience
I love
respond,
that
which I
one.
really, really
Yeah.
love.
You hear the energy.
I'm obsessed with Sunset Boulevard. Listen, I didn't know Nicole was a powerhouse. Have you guys seen it?
I have not.
Okay, like anybody that has not seen it, if you make it to New York, go see it, because like Nicole, and it's only like on for another month. She is amazing. I never thought a pussycat doll would be able to perform that well. I'm sorry, but it was amazing. It was so good. I've been back 3 times.
Oh,
Wow.
wow.
Yes, and the last time I got to meet her backstage after her show, after she just put out this emotional experience, and like she was covered in blood, and she's
Wow.
still back there, and she's just like, hi. I'm like, oh my god, like how do you come down from that?
Right.
Yeah.
And the best part was when I went backstage, I heard this little voice and I turned the corner, and guess who it is? Bernadette Peters.
Wow.
So it was like,
Wow.
Oh my
it was like a double like, oh my gosh moment. Yeah, it was
Yeah.
so good. So I hope I get to go back one more time before she leaves the show. But yes, that's what's on repeat in my
Okay.
studio right now.
Okay.
All right.
Yeah.
Sounds like we got to make another
Yeah,
trip.
I think so.
It's so good.
You've really been able to align yourself, your success with advocacy. Tell me a little bit more about that. How it's a key driver, and what are some of the things that you're really focused on today?
Oh man, I don't want to say it's a difficult conversation, but I will say that the conversation has changed a lot.
Yeah, especially lately.
especially since I came out on the show, which was in 2010, I believe. I mean, there's just been so many advances in medicine. I feel like with the current climate, I think that conversation is totally changing.
Yeah.
When I was
You
going,
feel like it's 2 steps forward and 1 step back, or 1 step forward and 2
I
steps
mean,
back. It's
a
very
lot
interesting.
It's a
Yeah.
lot of two-stepping,
Yeah.
just to say that.
Yeah.
And so, when I'm asked about advocacy, I don't know where my voice is the most important right now, to be honest, because everything's all over. So I can only
Yeah.
talk about my personal experiences and what I'm feeling today. You know what I mean?
Well, authenticity is key, right? I mean, and that's what resonates with people.
Yeah, I mean, I think for me, when I think about it and the whole arc of it is when I was when I was diagnosed, it was 2000, right? And then I came out in 2010, and now it's 2025. So I was only going to get medical and health help for 15 years. And so that
Mhm.
was more recent. But when I was going to these organizations, they were called HIV organizations, and now
Mm.
they're called health clinics because they're still, because there's advancements and everybody's being helped. And I don't know how I feel about that because I think it's still important to have that, have HIV in the conversation, actually say
Mhm.
the word.
Yep.
You know what I
Mhm.
mean? Because I don't think that a lot of people.
It's like it's getting washed over.
Yes,
Yeah.
Yeah.
exactly. And so it's still important to talk about HIV and know that there's still not a cure and that people are still dying from AIDS. I also think that because there are different um, advancements in medicine and treatment and proactive drugs and whatever it is, I think that also comes hand in hand with more irresponsibility. And that's something
Very good
that we're
point.
not talking about,
Yeah.
And I feel like that is something that needs to really be put on the
Agreed.
table. I will also say that it's when I think about my advocacy and how it has changed over the past 15 years, a lot of it has to do with not only knowing at what moment I was diagnosed and the moment that I came out and knowing where I'm at now, but also respecting what had happened before.
Hmm.
Mhm.
And one thing that I experienced as an advocate is being on a panel with, you know, 5 other advocates. And one of the advocates was a person that lived through the 80s in New York City. And my story wasn't valid to her because
Mhm.
I didn't live through the 80s. And so I didn't know the pain that she
Where
felt.
death was real,
You know what I mean?
where they
And
didn't
that
even
was
understand
very
what it
hard
was.
for me
Yeah.
to to accept, and it really upset me because,
Mhm.
like I'm not, I respect your experience, but in some way because I didn't have your experience, you're not understanding my own personal experience, and I don't want anybody to ever feel that way. I
Yeah.
want
Mhm.
them to know that, their experience is very important,
Right.
and it's very
But it's
important
part of the
to
overall story. It's very
exactly
interesting,
like
the
we're
reply that she had, because
exactly
you're part of the continuing story,
right.
right?
Yeah, I mean, it really did affect me because I know the history and really respecting somebody from that part and that
Yeah.
era, like coming at me and telling me that it was just very, very
Yeah.
difficult. And I really questioned, like,
Right.
like what's the value in my conversation,
You have value. People
right?
are broken. That person has baggage, right? So you got to
Yeah,
live with people. They're just kind of messy. We're all kind of messy, but at least the stories continue to
you're
be told.
messy.
We're
Just kidding.
I'm
messy.
definitely messy. No question.
No, I can see how
Yeah.
that would be confusing because you're somebody that really thrives in community and the supportive community and
Mhm.
and the safety of community, and that almost feels like it was a conversation that didn't feel so safe.
Yeah, and yeah, it didn't feel safe and it was embarrassing, to be honest,
Mhm.
because I'm on this panel where people came to see us, and we were all talking about our experiences, but for some reason my experience wasn't valid. And I don't know why I
Mm.
brought that up today, but like it's still
Yeah.
very
Very
painful
present. Yeah.
present. Yeah, and it was probably maybe like 8 years ago.
Mm.
But I think when we talk about the conversation and where it's at today,
Yeah.
it's I will say that everybody's experience and everybody's story is certainly valid,
A
and that we
hundred
should
percent.
still
And
continue to
relevant.
use HIV and AIDS in the
Yeah.
conversation. Actually talk about it.
Yeah. Oh, it's so important. Um, being that you are in a more public figure in this
Mm.
industry, are there misconceptions that people have about you that also hold a weight on your heart?
Um well, yeah, like
Is it
when
tough being famous,
no,
Mondo?
no, no. I listen. I don't. don't think I'm famous, but I will say that the hardest part is social media. We had talked about that earlier,
Yeah.
and I feel, as a creative person, there's so much pressure to always produce now and always share it.
Personal pressure or external pressure?
External
Okay.
pressure. But also that, like, again, that also comes back on me. I'm like, oh my God, I have to share this. I have to like do a video of the process, and I have to figure out how to like, well, I don't know, what do you call it? Clip it up? Like, what do you do?
Yeah.
Like, put it in a reel? I don't
Yeah,
know.
Right.
sure.
I
Yeah.
think I've done 2 reels in my life, and it took 2 days. I don't know.
Yeah,
It's
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 not enough
it's
that you're a designer. You have to be a marketer. You have to be a
exactly.
salesperson. You have to be a business person. You have to do all of it.
Exactly. And I'm still the type of person that, I don't use any technology or computer to design. I'm still very much that person that draws by hand on a piece of
Mhm.
paper. And if I make a mistake, I cut out another piece of paper and paste it on top. You know what I mean? Like, that's how I work. So I think that's the hardest part, is like the social media. That puts a little strain and heartbreak.
Yes.
Yeah. And you're not alone. I mean, not only the social media that would be incoming, but the pressure to output social media to drive the marketing efforts. Where Emily's really trying to build this new united culture kind of thing where we're trying to help designers help themselves in the business of fashion. And every time we talk to somebody, the answer's the
The
same.
social
It's like,
media.
hey, I love your thing. Where can I get it? Oh, I had an Instagram. It got hacked. I didn't rebuild it. I didn't have time.
Right.
It's
The
kind of
website,
surprising
the
through the
e-com doesn't
community where
work.
it's so
Right.
similar.
I mean, we have to be
Yeah.
our own production company at this point.
Yes.
We're,
Mhm.
it's hard.
And
It's really, really
everyone
hard. And it
struggles
takes
with
a
that.
lot of time.
Yeah.
Like, not only, working in the studio and working on a dress for 10 hours, 12 hours a day for a week. On top of that, you have to like take video while you're working on it. And
Yeah.
then at the end of the week, take 3 hours to put a reel together. You know what I mean? And oh my God, the
Oh,
tagging is
yes.
stressful. That is not a safe community. I'm sorry. Like,
Yeah.
people will get so offended if you don't tag them or the credit. Like, I have younger people that work for me, and I understand that they want the credit. But when I think about my personal experience, I was like sewing zippers in purses for $1 a zipper, and
hmm
those zippers took forever until I figured
Mhm.
it out. You know what I
hmm
mean?
Yeah.
But I didn't get any credit for that. It was just
No.
like something I
Right.
did.
Yeah.
It's like, and I get it. I really do get it. But like, the social media just is like, I don't know. I don't want to say it takes away the fun, because in a lot of ways, listen, I'm on it all the time.
Yeah.
I find it interesting and fun. But for me, as a creative person, the energy is
I can see it
so
could break
much.
your stride, your
Yeah,
creative stride.
exactly.
Yeah.
That's the point. It breaks the stride. Like, you want to be creative, you want to have fun, you want to enjoy the process. That's the biggest, like, one of the biggest things I always tell young creative people. They're like, what do I need you to do to get better? Enjoy the process.
Mhm.
Just allow yourself to have fun with it. You know what I mean? And I think for me, having to post and respond and tag and all these other responsibilities on top of just, being nice to yourself, which is for me,
Yeah.
just being in the studio, it's hard.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So this business of fashion that we're talking about, that's
Mhm.
very social media heavy these days. Especially since retailers are now in this place where they don't want to be the driving
Pioneers.
the pioneer behind new brands. What are some things that you're doing to stay relevant to your customers and as a designer?
Uh, Lately, I've been doing more one-offs, one-of-a-kind things, and I just started a new little, I want to call it a category, because I wouldn't call it a label, because I'm not making like a bazillion things, but I've started this new thing called Mondo Guerra Gallery, and it can be anything. So it's like,
Mm.
maybe one month it's going to be a bunch of shirts with a bunch of, I don't know, whatever on them and decorated, and I don't know. The next month it could be hats, and next month it could be shorts, or maybe it might be a mix of, but I'm going to try to do it every every month at this
That's
point.
fun.
And it's only going to be like maybe a drop. See, I even learned that on social media. A
Yeah.
drop.
Drop.
I'm gonna
Capsule,
I'm
drop.
doing a little
Yeah.
Yeah.
drop of maybe 8 pieces at a time. Nothing major. I think that's the joy in being creative. So on top of it, I'm not only spending time in the studio working on looks for performers, but then I also get to come back and have like fun for a week with like creating 6 looks that I know that my customer is really going to appreciate. And I will say that like I have a really good mailing list, and the people that buy from me, they're consistent,
That's great.
and they appreciate
Loyal.
it. So that's
You mentioned
nice.
these
I love
little
that.
tidbits of wisdom, and we talk to a lot of designers, and everyone always thinks it's such a glamorous business, right? Everyone thinks, "Oh my God, they're designers.
You don't
They're
think I'm
immediately
glamorous?
successful."
Oh,
No,
you're talking
everyone
about the
thinks
work,
it's
not me as a
glamorous.
business.
No,
Okay.
everything is actually. Everyone outside goes, "Man, this is such an exciting business," right? And when you dialogue with designers, and there are so many struggling, you really talk to them, and it's like they love it. They want this to be their career. They can't make ends meet. You've reached commercial success. What advice would you have for them? What are little tidbits of wisdom along the way that you could provide to them where you're at today?
Oh my gosh, again, I would just say, and it might sound so generic, but enjoy the process and find your
Yeah.
people. And
Yeah.
I mean, even as much as we talk about social media, and for me in a negative way, it can help you.
Yeah.
So like I think as a young designer, as a new designer, it's important to really find out what that niche is. I feel like there's so much content out there, and fashion is so saturated, and there's so many different ideas that you can be attracted to. Find out what your niche thing is. Like really focus on that, and put yourself out there.
You
Take
said
a
find your
risk.
people. I think that's super important. Like every super successful designer has their tribe, right?
Yes.
People that surround them and go like, "Oh my God, everything they do." Loves Alexander McQueen. Everything comes out, his legacy carries on. She loves the DNA of that brand, what it stands for. How did you develop your tribe? I mean, how did you, as an introvert
I
to a
like
degree?
I like that you're talking about that, because when after I won All Stars and I went back to do Under the Gun, uh, it was easy for me because I was making money by traveling and doing conversations about art and with universities, and so money was coming in, and I had collaborations with Crocs and C Eyewear, and all this stuff was coming in.
Yeah.
So it was easy for me to get out of that way of me as an artist, because everything was being manufactured by and managed by everybody else.
Everybody else.
But I was still getting a paycheck.
Yep.
Yeah.
And that
Take some
came
pressure off.
and that came every 3 months, and that was great. But I wasn't happy because I wasn't doing things for myself.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so I kind of lost my tribe, as we talk about. And then when what was it called? Quarantine?
Yeah.
the
COVID.
COVID,
That
yeah,
whole,
that.
that whole
Dun, dun.
period
I forgot
of
about that,
time.
sorry. When that came around, I saw people making masks, and I was like, okay, maybe I'll do masks because I'm not doing anything else. And so I take time to curate 3 reversible masks every week, and I'd put them out every week. And I think this happened for a year, and customers were still coming back. So I did it for almost 2 years, and it was a very successful business. But during that, a lot of those people that saw me on Project Runway and liked my work were talking to me about like, why aren't you doing this, or why aren't you showing this anymore? And so reconnecting with my tribe really pushed me to go back to it and really start focusing on my happiness, and that happiness being providing things for people that like me. And that was very, very, very helpful.
You know what I like about that too is making a mask is a small thing. It was a very needed thing, But it was by you offering this small thing, it allowed you to reconnect with people. It
Yeah.
doesn't have to be a big
It
gesture.
was really, really awesome because every week I'd put it out. I'd write a letter about what the inspiration was, and people would share with me like, "Oh, I bought this T-shirt from you in 2010." They'd send me pictures. They're like, "I still got it," or like, I remember when you know you were on this episode or whatever it was. They
Mm-hmm.
had a certain connection, and I think during COVID, there was a lot of that. People because they
Yeah.
were
Cooped up.
cooped up, they wanted to reconnect to something that they
Right.
recognized and felt safe with. And I felt like that felt very good to me for people be reaching out after 10 years,
Mm-hmm.
talking about, this and that. And I provided that safe space for them. And so, yeah, I think that tribe was really, really, really helpful in finding my creative happiness again.
Mm-hmm.
Because listen, when I was doing Crocs and C and all those different collaborations, um, I was I was happy in the way that I
Well, you were
was.
bringing in some cash,
Yeah,
which
yeah,
was important.
exactly.
Yeah.
But I wasn't experimenting and being as creative as I
Yeah.
could be.
Right.
Because part of that was kind of ready to wear, watered down.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly, and mass produced.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
and mass
So I
produced.
think now with doing custom and one-offs for stage performers and artists, and also creating this Mondo Guerra gallery, allows me to not only reconnect with myself, but also reconnect with my tribe.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
So, as you are starting to think about the next era
Uh-huh.
for you and your brand, what are some key goals that you're looking at?
Oh, geez. I think a goal is to really push the brand in a way where I have a, a constant in product with good price points and that are very accessible, but also being able to provide a price point where it's more focused on the creativity, but all produced by me and
Mm-hmm.
controlled by me. And that's something that I
That's a
really
pretty
have
big
to,
task.
I know, listen, because I am not a business person. I actually, I know that. I'm
Yeah.
not a business person. I'm a creative person.
Yeah.
Numbers actually depress me. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? Because it's just like, oh my God, like, how do I continue this and still be happy, but also like make money and find the time? Like, it's all numbers, time, money,
Yep.
You're
like
right.
everything. And it was
Yep.
like, oh my God, and I'm not a numbers person. Listen, I was in algebra as a senior in high school. That tells you how bad I am with numbers.
I was the
Anyway.
same.
Yeah.
I fell asleep in algebra. I thought numbers had nothing for me. And I really started designing in my career. But as I took over the company, Stars Design Group, and have been 24 years, I've really learned to appreciate numbers. They can be creative. You just got to kind of look at the impact and understand how
Yeah.
that can do it. But again, this is a common conversation within the design community. It's like, look, if someone else could deal with that and let me go
Yes.
design, that's what I'd
Listen,
like to do.
if anybody out there, I need help on the
Yes.
business
The
end.
back of the
Yeah.
house,
You know
right?
what
Yeah.
I mean? Like, I'm
Yes.
really good at being creative. Even if you give me a challenge, I will live up to it. But like when it comes to the numbers,
Yeah.
it's very, very, very hard for me, and it's very depressing. Like I said, it's like it actually annoys me and frustrates me, and it doesn't allow me to sleep. It like actually hurts me to have to deal with it. Like if I start thinking about the numbers, I'm like, oh my God, I don't even want to finish this. You know what I mean? It's like
And is that because it's the reality of having to make a living, or is it the fact that it has to become part of the creative process? Or
the fact that it has to become a part of the
Okay.
creative process, and
Yeah.
that is never
because this is kind of
never
commercial
fun.
design, it's
I
not pure.
and that's the thing that we're talking about. I feel like half of it needs to be that commercial design, and the other part can be the fun exploration
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
everything else. And listen, I feel like when I do a show or do a look, a custom for a queen or whatever it is, I always am exploring during that process, and that always does trickle down into the DNA of the commercial thing.
Yeah.
So
Are you wrestling between kind of the runway, out of the box kind of designs, and are you going to distill a ready-to-wear brand for the masses? I mean, growing your
Yes,
audience is
and
so important.
yes, and I think that's also a thing that I'm struggling with is that like when we look at runway pieces and the work that's put into them, but then like, oh, you can like transfer this idea, this print or whatever it is, and just, print it on a dress shirt. That's hard for me to think about because I'm like, I would never buy that. You know what I mean? But maybe I would. I don't know. I have to see it. I feel
Yeah.
like there has to be like some kind of special, I don't know, detail or something that's just a little unique about it that I would want to, purchase it.
As all designers have kind of created that. They find
Right.
as simple as Hilfiger's little green eyelet, that's his
Right.
detail, his signature piece. You develop those little DNA pieces.
Right. And I don't think I've stumbled upon that yet. So
Well,
I feel
you'll
like
get
that's in it. But I do, I am thinking more about the commercial and seeing how that would work out. But also, even there, I don't think I'm buying 500 units of one style. You know what
Yeah.
I mean? I'm
Well, your
maybe-
audience will tell you that eventually,
Oh,
but I
trust
love
me,
the
they've
idea.
already told me. They're like, we like being you like you just
Boutique.
like, yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
Having a smaller number and smaller availability. And I think that's exciting. And like again, when we talk about like oversaturation of this and that and that
Yeah.
and this, I think the smart fashion savvy customer is always looking at their favorite creative people, whether designers, painters, whatever it is. And they're always
Musicians, gotta
looking for
throw
their
that
new
in.
drops, and being like,
Right.
I better pay attention. Let me set my clock because it's going to drop and it's going to sell out. And I think
Yeah.
that's the exciting thing about it
Creating the
being,
demand.
Right. Yeah. Being so accessible right now.
And I feel like it's kind of the important balance in our industry. We have Shein and all these big mass-produced fast fashion that's filling landfills, and it's
And stealing ideas from smaller brands.
there
Let's
are a
bring
lot
that
of
up.
challenges with that stuff. But I feel like on this level, the designers are kind of that balance. It's like well thought out, intentional pieces, small production runs, things that you love, you curate, you
Look forward
keep,
to.
you look forward to, as opposed to, hey, I'm going to buy it today and throw it away tomorrow. I mean,
You're going to hold on to them forever,
Yes,
And
yeah.
even if you like grow out of it or if you don't wear it anymore, you're going to keep it in your closet because it has
she resembles that remark.
it has
Yeah.
value,
Yes.
It means something
Yeah.
to you. You remember when you bought it.
Yeah.
Remember
Yeah.
where you were and you remember when you first wore it and how many compliments you got when you were
Yes.
wearing it. That's
Yeah.
very special.
I love the conversation we had with Mickey Boardman, and he talked about really all from a resource standpoint, everybody needs a good tailor because the day you do grow out of that favorite garment, or you find something that really speaks to you, and you want it but it doesn't fit you, guess what? You can get it reinvented. So
You can.
I love the idea of this piece that has been around in your life for longer than a lot of your relationships can
Yes, and
can
that's
evolve with you.
Yes, and I think that's a key word right now in fashion is like evolution, not only through technique and through innovation, but like through the actual garment itself. There's so much opportunity for upcycling right now, and so many ways to reinvent your wardrobe. And I think it's really important to be that person.
That's an exciting new kind of business model where a designer takes back an older piece, evolves it, reinvents it, and sends it
Yes.
back
I
out.
think that's so cool.
That would be really interesting.
That's a really good idea.
Yeah.
Okay, part
Let's
of your-
work on it.
Your
Yeah.
next,
I love that idea.
Yes, it's
Yeah.
part of
Send
your
it
new-
to us.
Send it to us.
back out.
We'll
Yeah.
evolve it. We'll
Yeah.
bring it up to
Yeah.
speed and send it back. Save the landfill.
Well, I'm glad our conversation resulted in a new idea
Yeah,
for you.
that's good. Very good.
Well, thank you so much for this conversation today.
Yeah, it's therapeutic. Like talking about, process and art and everything is always very therapeutic. As long as the numbers don't come up, we're
Oh,
good.
yeah. Well, maybe you just need a little more Bach in your life, right?
What is Bach? Oh, Bach, like the instrument, like the
Bach.
composer.
Thinking
Okay.
about some of those,
Okay.
piano masterpieces.
I like
are
Bartok
very-
a little better. But
Yeah. Okay. Well, thank you so much for this amazing conversation. I look forward to many more with you. And thank you for joining us today. Don't forget to subscribe to stay apprised of more clothing culture
Yeah, clothing
conversations.
comfortable culture.
You know, yes.
We're in a nice, comfortable couch. It's okay.
We'll see you soon.
Thanks.